Hello students. So all of you are ready for the English literature class. So we will continue with the chapter 3 from the book It So Happened. So all of you open that book and turn to page 22. So just go to that first paragraph above, you can see. Okay, I had stopped till there. I'm just reading a few lines to remind you. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. So that was where I had stopped laugh. I had stopped last. Okay. So I will continue after that. All day long they played. And in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. Okay. But where is your little companion? He said, the boy I put into the tree. The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. We don't know, answered the children. He has gone away. You must tell him to be sure and come tomorrow, said the giant. But the children said they did not know where he lived and had never seen him before, and the giant felt very sad. So, all day long, the children played in the garden, okay, and in the evening, they came to say goodbye to the giant, and then the giant asked him about about the little companion, okay, about the boy whom he had put on the tree, and the boy who had kissed him, okay. And what did the children reply? They said that he has gone away. He had gone away, okay, and they had not seen him. And then the giant told him that you must be sure and tell him to come tomorrow. But the children replied that they did not know where he lived and had never seen him, and the giant felt very sad. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed for his little friend and often spoke of him. How would I like to see him? He used to say. So every afternoon, when the school was over, the children came into the giant's garden, okay, and they played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved the most, he was never seen again. And the giant was kind to all the children, but he longed for his little friend, okay, and he wished to see him. So in this way, years went by, and the giant grew very old and feeble. Feeble means weak. And he could not play about anymore. So he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at the games and admired his garden. And he said, I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. So years passed by, and the giant grew old and weak. Okay, he could not play anymore. So what did he do? He sat on a wheelchair, sorry, He sat on a huge armchair and he watched the children. And he used to say that he has many beautiful flowers, okay, but the children were the most beautiful flowers of all. And then one winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely means only just, the spring asleep, and that the flowers were resting. So one winter morning he looked out of the window, okay, while he was dressing, and it was winter morning, and he did not hate the winter anymore because he knew that it was the winter season and that the spring season was resting, okay, and even the flowers. And suddenly he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked. It was certainly a marvelous, beautiful, wonderful sight. So what did he see? In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely white blossoms, flowers, and its branches were golden, and silver fruit hung down from them. And underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. So what did he see? He rubbed his eyes and he saw a most wonderful sight. In the farthest corner of the garden, there was a tree, and it was covered with lovely white flowers. Its branches were of golden, and silver fruits hung down from the tree. And just underneath the tree stood the little boy he had loved. And he was so happy to see that little boy that he ran downstairs. Okay, downstairs ran the giant in great joy. And out in the garden, he hastened means to be quick, across the grass, and came near to the child. And when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who hath?" Okay, now hath means had. "Dared to wound thee." Thee means you. For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails were on the little feet. So I'll just go back to that paragraph. I'll explain you. So when he saw the little boy, he was so happy to see him that he ran downstairs in great joy. He came to the garden, he ran across the grass and came near the child. And when he stood near the child, okay, he saw something which made him grow red with anger. Okay, and he asked the child who had done that. Okay, and who had dared to wound the child, because on the palms of the child, okay, there were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails on the feet. Again the giant asked him, "Who hath had dared to wound thee?" cried the giant. "Tell me that, and I may take my big sword and slay him." Slay means to kill. So you tell me who had done that, and I will kill him. Okay. Uh, I'll explain you later on about this part of the story. Just turn over the page. "Nay, nay means no," answered the child, "but these are the wounds of love." "What art thou?" I'm sorry, who art thou? Now, who art thou means art means are, thou means you. "Who are you?" said the giant. And a strange awe, okay, means feeling, all right, fell on him, and he knelt down before the little child. And the child smiled on the giant and said to him, "You let me in play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise. Okay, paradise means garden in heaven. And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms. Okay, so I'll explain you that part. So when the giant asked him, okay, who had dared to wound him, okay, and he wanted to know so that he would kill him with his sword. And the child answered, okay, no, but these are the wounds of love. Okay, so who was actually that child? That child was Christ. Okay, Jesus Christ. All right, and when the giant saw him, okay, and he asked him, "Who are you?" And a strange awe fell on him. Okay, and he knelt before the little child. All right, and the child smiled on him, smiled on the giant, and then told him that you let me play once in your garden, that is the giant's garden. And he said, uh, today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise. Okay, and then what happened? And then the giant died. Okay, and his body was covered with white blossoms, white flowers. And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms. So here the giant was rewarded for his kindness. Okay, remember later on there was a change in him and he loved the children very much. Okay, he allowed the children to play in his garden. Okay, and that is why he was rewarded. Okay, that is why Jesus Christ told him that once you let me play in my garden, and now he would go to his garden, which is paradise in heaven. All right, so he was rewarded for his kindness. So we come to the end of this chapter. Go through this chapter, okay, thoroughly, and we have time, okay, so we can finish or I can start another chapter, that is chapter 4. All right, so actually your syllabus, I have sent the syllabus, you must have seen it. Okay, and from the book it so happened this is the last chapter. Okay, that is the chapter 3 from this book. It will come from chapter 3 up to chapter 3. Clear? Okay, so let us begin chapter 4, the treasure within. So before you read, see what is given over there. Okay, every child is a potential achiever and is different from other children in her, his style of learning, and area of interest. Read the interview that follows, and it is based on a conversation between Miss Bella Raja, editor of Sparsh, a newsletter from the Resource Center, the Valley School, Bangalore, and Mr. Hafiz, contractor, one of India's leading architects. So, what is this chapter about? Okay, it says that every child is a potential achiever. Okay, like he has the ability to achieve something or to achieve success. Okay, and is different from other children in his, in her, or his style of learning and area of interest. So this chapter is about an conversation between Miss Bella Raja, editor of Sparsh. Okay, it was a newsletter from the Resource Center, the Valley School, Bangalore, and Mr. Hafiz, contractor, one of India's leading architects. So let us see, read. So this is the dialogue or the conversation between these two persons. Hafiz, contractor. I used to, there's one few lines given over there. Let us read that. Hafiz, contractor, was an unhappy schoolboy. He loved doing things but detested means hated, mechanical learning. Mathematics gave him the shivers. He was very afraid of maths. Okay. What his principal once said to him influenced him deeply. So he was deeply affected or influenced by what his principal told him once. So let us see. Hafiz, contractor. I used to have this terrible nightmare. Okay. Nightmare, frightening dream or haunting fear. Only now over the last 4 to 5 years, it seems to have disappeared. So he said, he's telling to the Miss Bella Raja, who is taking his interview. Okay, he said that he used to have terrible nightmares, very frightening dreams, and it was only the last 4 to 5 years that it has stopped. And then Bella Raja asks him, "What nightmare are you talking about, and why do you think it has disappeared now?" So Hafiz, contractor, replies, "I used to get continuous nightmares about appearing for a mass examination where I did not know anything." So that was a dream he was having, or in fact, nightmare, and he used to have continuous nightmares. So what was it? That he dreamt that he was appearing for his mass examination and he did not know anything. Okay. Now the psych means mind or mentality. Now the psych must have gotten over it. Maybe my mind has got over it. Okay. And I don't have to think about education, and there is absolutely no time to get nightmares. So now he says maybe my mind has got over that nightmare, and he doesn't have to think about education anymore because he has already completed his education and there was no time to get nightmares. Clear? And then Bella Raja asks, "Tell us something about your earliest memories in school." And Hafiz, contractor, replies, "In the first and second year, I was a good student. After I reached the third standard, I simply lost interest and never studied. I used to be interested in games, running around, playing, jokes, and pranks. Okay. Uh, pranks means playing practical jokes. I would copy in class during exam times. I would try to get hold of the examination paper that had been prepared and study it, as I could not remember things that had been taught to me in class. So he is telling about his earliest memories in school. So what does he say? He said in the first and the second year he was a very good student. Okay, he was a good student, and when he reached the third standard, he lost interest and never studied. He was interested in games, running around, playing jokes, pranks on others, and he would also copy during exam times. And he used to get hold of the examination paper that had been prepared and he used to study it because he could not remember anything what had been taught in the class. However, later one sentence spoken to me by my principal changed my life. When I approached my 11th standard, the principal called me and said, "Look here, son, I have been seeing you from day one. You are a good student, but you never studied. I have taken care of you till today. Now I can no longer take care of you, so you do it yourself." So when he reached his 11th standard, okay, the principal told him one sentence, okay, which changed his life. So what did his principal tell him? He told him that he had been seeing him right from the very first day of school, right from day one. And he told him that he was a good student, but he never studied. Until that day, the principal had taken care of him. And then he could no longer take care of himself, of him. And so he had to take care of himself now. And he talked to me for 5 minutes. You don't have your father and your mother has worked so hard to bring you up and paid all your fees all these years, but you have only played games. Now you should rise to the occasion and study. So I told him, you don't have your father, your mother, who worked so hard to bring you up and they paid all your fees all these years. Okay, but what did you do? Just played games? And now you should rise to the occasion and study. Okay. Then he says, I used to be a very good sportsman. I had been all the senior champion for so many years, and I also was the cricket captain. I used to play every game, but that year I did not step out onto the field. So look at the change he had from that one sentence which his principal told him. He says that he was a very good sportsman and he had been senior champion for so many years. He had also been the school captain, sorry, cricket captain, and used to play every game. But that year, he did not come out to the field to play any games. What does it mean? He just studied and studied. Clear? So what did he do? See, it is given there. I would go for prayers, and all I would do was eat and study. I normally studied to copy and pass, but I realized that once I was in SSC, that is board examination, okay, I could not do that. So, what was his routine? He would go for prayers, and all he used to do was to eat and study. And normally, he used to study just to copy and pass. But he realized that when he would appear for his board examination, that is SSC, he could not do that. And when I got a second class, 50% in my SSC, my principal said, "Son, consider yourself as having got a distinction." This is my memory of my school days. So when his results came out, he got a second class, that is 50% in his SSC. His principal told him that he should consider it as having got a distinction. And that was his memory of his school days. Clear? Okay. Then he says, I did lots of other things. See, as far as my things are concerned, I can't remember. I forget things very easily. To remember, I have to see things as a photograph. Okay. And read book. And I can remember the matter as a photograph, but not through my mind. That is how it works. So he says about himself, okay, uh, that he did a lot of other things also, okay, and as far as things are concerned, he cannot remember them. He forgets very easily. And in order to remember things, okay, he has to see things as a photograph or read a book, okay, and he can remember the matter as a photograph then, but not through his mind. That is how it works. Okay, so I think time is almost up. All right, so I will stop here now. I will continue with the next part of the chapter in your next class. All right, okay.